Welcome to Bearwood, a spectacular building with an extraordinary history. The mansion has lived countless lives and can tell a million stories. In this series, we will bring these tales to life and uncover pockets of time from Bearwood's past. Each episode will begin using a photo of Bearwood chosen by students here at REDDAM'S House. Welcome to the picture gallery. Now, when John Walter III rebuilt Bearwood, he did so to accommodate three things: his growing income, his growing family, and his growing art collection. Art was very important to John Walter III, and you can see this just by looking at where the picture gallery was placed within the new house. At the moment, we are towards the west of the building, which was where all of the really opulent, stately rooms were. Towards the east, it was the servants' quarters. And the picture gallery is right in the middle of the west side of Bearwood. And to get to any of the big posh rooms, you need to pass through the gallery and look at the paintings. But what about the collection itself? Well, to find out more, here's Chris McKANE.
John Walter I started the collection of paintings, and John Walter II carried on, and so the third was still buying too. And it was a very conservative collection. Dutch and Flemish paintings. They took no opportunity to snap up Turners and Constables, which were around later. You know, they could have bought into that, but it was Dutch and Flemish. And John Walter II was said in his obituary to have an uncommon taste for the fine arts, and this collection at Bearwood was reckoned to be unsurpassed for its size by any in the kingdom. It was a very fine collection indeed, and of course when the picture gallery was built in the second Bearwood, it was displayed there to great effect. Well, to great effect, but the style of hanging in those days, of course, was to plaster the walls with paintings. And the great German art critic Gustav Wagen visited in 1856. He was director of the Royal Gallery in Berlin, and he came and he found that some of the paintings were so high up, and it was such a dark day, he couldn't actually see them. Nonetheless, he wrote a very complimentary assessment of the collection, and one particular painting he focused on, which was by common consent the jewel of the collection, was Paulus Potter's painting of two cows and a bull in a field. And Wagen, who was not given to exaggeration, said in his report, "Great as were my anticipations regarding this celebrated picture, they were surpassed." It was a very fine work of art. And as I say, JW3 continued gathering paintings for the gallery, and then over the years they were dispersed, and the Paulus Potter is now in Chicago. It was sold on by Sotheby's and is worth many millions.
The Paulus Potter painting was definitely the jewel of the Walter art collection. Just to give you an idea, when John Walter III died in 1894, the Times solicitors came to Bearwood. They went round every single room, including the picture gallery, and they valued all of the paintings that were in the house. There was about 90 in total. We have a list of all of them here as appeared in the inventory of 1894. And if you look here, you will see listed Paul Potter panel, so a panel painting of 1647, which was the year it was painted. And it's written down as young bull and cows, which is the two cows and a young bull besides a fence in a meadow that Chris was talking about. Now, the entire collection of 90 paintings is worth £21 £1,159.12, which in 1894 is a lot of money, and that's worth a lot more money today. The Paulus Potter painting alone is worth £1,890. So that's nearly 10% of this entire collection on that one painting. So, as Chris McKANE was describing, Gustav Wagen visited the original house at Bearwood in the 1850s to view all of the water art collection. He was very happy with what he saw, he was impressed, but he did say that the room was dimly lit. So, when John Walter III rebuilt Bearwood, how did he rectify this issue? Well, I've come to the very top of the mansion, to the tower, to show you how he did it. The beauty about this picture gallery is that it wasn't siphoned off in the corner of a house. Instead, it was placed right in the middle with a skylight above it to allow natural light in to light the paintings properly. Now, if you pan down, you can see that the rest of the house rises in a quadrangle on all sides for 3 more floors around the picture gallery, but the picture gallery itself is unobstructed and the paintings can be properly viewed. If you look beyond the picture gallery, beyond the house, beyond South Terrace, you will eventually get to the lake brooding in the background. And that brings us to the next part of our story. As we found out last episode, the lake was sculpted to be a place of tranquility and fishing for John Walter II, away from the rigours of the times at Printing House Square, and later, away from the rigours of being an MP in Parliament. After the Walter era, the lake was used extensively by the Royal Merchant Navy School, and I suppose the clue is in the name, Merchant Navy. However, the overwhelming legacy of this lake is tragedy, because it witnessed the most defining moment of Victorian Bearwood. Christmas Eve, 1870. The Walters were preparing for Christmas at Bearwood with the house under construction. John Borston Walter, the eldest son of John Walter III, was the heir to the Times, groomed to inherit both the paper and Bearwood. He had just returned from a world tour in time for Christmas. On Christmas Eve, the lake froze over, as it often would, and the skating party set upon the ice. The ice broke, and 2 of John's brothers, as well as a cousin, got into difficulty in the water. John dived in to save them, which he did, but tragically, he drowned.
The impact of that on the family Christmas cannot be imagined. It must have been absolutely frightful. And of course, it meant there was no John Walter to take over the paper, and everything had fallen apart. And I mean, tragedy is not an exaggeration for that event.
On Boxing Day 1870, 2 days after the Bearwood Lake tragedy, the inquest into the death of John Borston Walter took place here in what was the Victorian Library. And I've come back to this room to show you a copy of a very special artefact which has been gifted to REDDAM'S House by the archivists at the Times. This is a facsimile of the testimonial given by the Times companionship to John Walter III in January 1871. The companionship was in effect an in-house workers' cooperative, and this document was signed by roughly 300 staff. It reads as follows. To John Walter, Esquire. Sir, the knowledge of your melancholy bereavement has filled us with sorrow and awakened our deepest sympathy. We are grieved indeed to know that death has so ruthlessly laid his hand upon your eldest son, and that you have lost one on whom were centred many hopes, and who by his talents and education was so eminently filled for the duties of the high position before him. To you, sir, who have always been anxious to alleviate the afflictions of others, we cannot but regret that we have no better offering to make in this, the hour of need to your great trouble, than a few plain words expressive of our sincere horror and sympathy. and it's signed by the Time staff, quite simply, as your faithful and dedicated servants. A monument to John Borston Walter stands on Memorial Island in the middle of Bearwood Lake, but he is buried here, alongside his family in the Walter plot at St Catherine's Church, adjacent to the mansion just the other side of Bearwood Road. This church was built by John Walter II in 1846. Its name was dedicated to St Catherine following another family tragedy. In 1844, JW2's eldest daughter, Catherine, died of enteritis, aged just 24. A generation later, John Borston Walter was only 25 when he drowned following the skating accident on Bearwood Lake. The church itself was part of the model village of Sindlesham, which grew up around the Walter family at Bearwood. Alongside St Catherine's, 35 cottages were constructed, as well as a village store, cricket field and pub, the Walter Arms. At its height, the Walter estate was over 7,000 acres, expanding across Arborfield, Wokingham, Finchampstead and Sandhurst. The estate's ecosystem was, to an extent, self-sustaining. For example, the 4,468,000 bricks used to build the current mansion were extracted from a local quarry that is now Longmore Lake at California Country Park. And all of the gorgeous joinery inside the mansion was sourced from trees on the Bearwood estate and crafted at the Victorian sawmill to the west of the lake, which, at the time, was rumoured to have the largest saw bench in the world. The Walters' legacy, both the mansion and the estate, remain today for all to see. But as the 20th century dawned, the landscape was changing, and the days of one family owning a colossal estate were numbered. By the time that Arthur Fraser Walter, John Borston's younger brother, took over the helm, the Times' financial position had seriously deteriorated. He died in 1910. In 1911, the Bearwood estate was put up for sale. However, they could not sell the mansion. A temporary solution arose following the outbreak of the First World War. Here we see the mansion's first transformational change in use, when John Walter V offered the use of his country house as a convalescent hospital for Canadian soldiers. We will explore stories from the Canadian Convalescent Hospital in the next episode, which will include 2 very special readings from JW5's granddaughter, Harriet Walter.